Miguel loved his cousins, Sofia and Mateo, more than anything. At 17, he felt responsible for them, especially since their parents were working far away. Sofia, with her bright eyes and missing front tooth, was 6. Mateo, a bit shy but always curious, was 8. They lived in Honduras, but today was special. They were going to cross the big bridge, the one that led to a new life, a life with more opportunities. Miguel held Sofia's hand tightly, while Mateo skipped ahead, pointing at the colorful birds flying overhead. "It's going to be amazing, Miguel," Mateo shouted, his voice full of excitement. Miguel smiled. He knew it wouldn't be easy, but seeing their happy faces made him feel strong. He had all the papers, everything was in order. This youth program was their ticket to a better future. He just had to keep them safe. The pedestrian bridge stretched before them, a metal spine connecting two worlds. The air hummed with anticipation. Cars zoomed below, a blur of motion. Miguel kept a watchful eye on Sofia and Mateo as they walked. Sofia pointed at a butterfly flitting among the flowers planted in boxes along the bridge. Mateo, ever the adventurer, tried to peek through the gaps in the railing. "Careful," Miguel warned gently, pulling him back. He scanned the end of the bridge, noticing the uniformed figures standing there. His heart skipped a beat. He knew there would be some kind of check, but the sight of the officers made him nervous. He clutched the folder with their documents tighter. Everything would be all right, he told himself. Just keep walking. They reached the end of the bridge. An officer stepped forward, his face stern. "Papers, please," he said, his voice flat. Miguel's hands trembled as he opened the folder. He handed over the documents, explaining about the youth program. "These are my cousins, Sofia and Mateo. I'm their guardian," he said, trying to sound confident. The officer barely glanced at the papers. He looked at Miguel, then at the children. "You're under arrest," he announced. Miguel's world tilted. "What? Why?" he stammered, his voice cracking. Two more officers stepped forward, flanking him. Sofia started to cry, clutching Miguel's leg. Mateo looked confused and scared. "Miguel?" he whispered, his eyes wide with fear. The officers pulled Miguel away, ignoring Sofia's screams and Mateo's bewildered expression. The word coyote hung in the air, unspoken but understood. It meant someone who smuggles people across borders, often for money, often taking advantage of vulnerable people. The officer thought Miguel was a coyote. It was a terrible accusation and utterly false. Miguel wasn't a criminal. He was family. He tried to explain again, his voice rising in desperation. "I'm not a coyote. These are my cousins. I have the papers." But the officers weren't listening. They led him away, his pleas echoing in the air. Sofia's cries intensified, a piercing sound of pure fear. Mateo stood frozen, his face pale, as he watched Miguel disappear. The dream of a new life had turned into a nightmare. Inside the cold, sterile room, Miguel tried again. He laid out the documents on the metal table. Birth certificates, guardianship papers, letters from their parents. "Please, look at these," he pleaded with the ICE agent across from him. "They prove I'm their family." The agent, a woman with a weary expression, barely glanced at the papers. "We'll look into it," she said, her voice devoid of emotion. But Miguel could see in her eyes that she didn't believe him. He pointed to the official stamps, the notarized signatures. "These are real. A social worker helped us get them. She knows me." The agent just shrugged. "That's what they all say." Miguel felt a wave of despair wash over him. He was trapped in a system that didn't care about the truth. The youth program, Guardian Angels, was designed to help families like Miguel's. It allowed older siblings or relatives to legally escort younger children across borders, provided they met strict requirements. Miguel had gone through weeks of interviews, background checks, and training. He knew the rules inside and out. Guardian Angels required proof of kinship, a safe housing plan, and a commitment to enrolling the children in school. Miguel had meticulously prepared everything. He even had a letter from the program director, explaining his role and confirming his authorization to travel with Sofia and Mateo. But none of it seemed to matter to the ICE agents. The program, meant to protect families, was failing him. A few hours later, a woman named Elena arrived at the IC facility. She was a social worker who had helped Miguel with the Guardian Angels program. She was furious. "I told you he was with the program," she exclaimed, her voice sharp. "I verified his documents myself. He's our legal guardian." Elena presented her credentials and explained the program to the supervisor. She showed them the program's database, which clearly listed Miguel, Sofia, and Mateo. The supervisor listened, but his expression remained unchanged. "Our policy is to detain individuals suspected of human smuggling," he said, his voice firm. "We have to investigate." Elena's frustration grew. "But you have proof he's not. You're traumatizing these children for no reason." Despite Elena's passionate arguments and irrefutable evidence, ICE refused to release Miguel. The supervisor explained that they needed to verify the information independently, a process that could take days, even weeks. He offered no timeline, no guarantee. Elena was appalled. She knew Sofia and Mateo were being held in a separate facility, scared and alone. Every hour Miguel remained in detention was causing them further trauma. She argued that keeping Miguel detained, when they had clear proof he wasn't a threat, was a violation of their own policies. But her words seemed to bounce off a wall of bureaucratic indifference. The system, she realized, was designed to move slowly, regardless of the human cost. Sofia cried herself to sleep that night, clutching a worn teddy bear Miguel had given her. She kept asking for him, her voice a small, broken whisper. Mateo, usually so brave, refused to eat. He sat silently in a corner, drawing pictures of Miguel on a scrap of paper. Each drawing showed Miguel with big, strong arms protecting them. They didn't understand why Miguel wasn't there. All they knew was that he had promised to keep them safe, and now he was gone. The strange room, the unfamiliar faces, the constant questions, it was all too much. They longed for the comfort of Miguel's presence, his gentle smile, his reassuring words. They just wanted to go home. Miguel's arrest raised serious questions. Was it right to detain someone based on suspicion alone, ignoring clear evidence to the contrary? What responsibility did ICE have to ensure the well-being of children separated from their guardians? How could a program designed to protect vulnerable families be so easily disregarded? The legal system was supposed to protect the innocent, but in this case, it seemed to be failing Miguel and his cousins. The accusation of human smuggling carried heavy penalties, and Miguel faced the possibility of deportation, even though he had done nothing wrong. The injustice of the situation was glaring, a stark reminder of the power imbalances and systemic flaws that could tear families apart. Enter Gabriela, a young, determined lawyer who specialized in immigration cases. She learned about Miguel's situation through Elena, the social worker. Gabriela was outraged. She saw a clear case of injustice and was determined to help. She immediately filed a petition for Miguel's release, citing the evidence of his guardianship and the legality of his participation in the Guardian Angels program. She contacted ICE, demanding an explanation for his continued detention. She knew the legal battle would be long and difficult, but she was prepared to fight for Miguel and his cousins. She believed that everyone, regardless of their background, deserved a fair chance. News of Miguel's arrest spread quickly through the local Honduran community. People were outraged. They knew Miguel, knew he was a good kid, a responsible family member. A group of neighbors organized a protest outside the ICE facility, holding signs that read, "Free Miguel," and "Families belong together." They shared stories about Miguel, how he always helped the elderly with their groceries, how he tutored younger children after school. They emphasized that he was not a criminal, but a valuable member of their community. The protest brought attention to Miguel's case, putting pressure on ICE to reconsider their decision. The community's support was a beacon of hope in a dark situation. Life without Miguel was difficult for Sofia and Mateo. They were placed in a foster home, a clean but impersonal place. The foster parents were kind, but they weren't Miguel. Sofia missed Miguel's bedtime stories and his warm hugs. Mateo missed their soccer games in the park and Miguel's help with his homework. They tried to be brave, but every night they cried themselves to sleep, whispering Miguel's name. They kept asking when he was coming back, but no one could give them a straight answer. The uncertainty was agonizing, a constant reminder of their separation and the broken promise of a new life together. Their world had shrunk, filled with fear and longing. Weeks turned into months. Gabriella worked tirelessly, navigating the complex legal system. She filed motions, gathered evidence, and interviewed witnesses. Each step was a battle, a fight against bureaucratic red tape and institutional indifference. She finally secured a court hearing. The hearing was Miguel's chance to tell his story, to present the evidence that had been ignored for so long. Gabriella prepared him meticulously, going over every detail, anticipating every question. She knew that the outcome of this hearing would determine Miguel's future and the future of Sofia and Mateo. The stakes were incredibly high. Inside the detention center, Miguel felt a crushing weight of responsibility. He worried constantly about Sofia and Mateo, wondering if they were safe and happy. He tried to stay strong, but the uncertainty was agonizing. He missed their laughter, their hugs, their simple presence. He spent his days reading, writing letters to his family, and praying for a miracle. He clung to the hope that Gabriella would be able to prove his innocence and reunite him with his cousins. He knew they were counting on him, and he couldn't let them down. Their faces were his motivation, their love his strength. Even in the darkest of times, he refused to give up. The inconsistencies in ICE's handling of Miguel's case were glaring. Why hadn't they contacted the Guardian Angels program to verify his status? Why had they ignored the social worker's testimony? Why were they prioritizing detention over the well-being of two young children? The flaws in the system became increasingly apparent. The lack of proper training for ICE agents, the reliance on outdated protocols, the inherent bias against immigrants, all contributed to Miguel's wrongful arrest and continued detention. The case exposed the urgent need for reform, for greater accountability, and for a more humane approach to immigration enforcement. The system needed to be fixed before more families were torn apart. Other families, witnessing Miguel's ordeal, grew fearful. They had been planning to reunite with their children through the Guardian Angels program, but now they hesitated. What if they, too, were wrongly accused? What if their families were torn apart? Applications to the program dwindled. The promise of a safe and legal path to reunification seemed less certain. The fear instilled by Miguel's case threatened to undermine the very purpose of the program, leaving vulnerable children stranded and families separated. The injustice against Miguel had far-reaching consequences, casting a shadow of doubt over a system designed to help. Just days before the hearing, Gabriella discovered a crucial piece of evidence. A memo circulated within ICE instructing agents to be extra vigilant in cases involving unaccompanied minors, even when documentation was presented. The memo, seemingly innocuous on the surface, revealed a bias against families like Miguel's, an assumption of guilt rather than innocence. The memo proved that Miguel had been unfairly targeted, not because of any wrongdoing, but because of a pre-existing prejudice. It was a smoking gun, a clear indication of systemic bias. Gabriella knew this evidence could be the key to securing Miguel's release and exposing the injustice he had endured. The discovery renewed her determination to fight. The day of the hearing arrived. Sofia and Mateo, dressed in their best clothes, sat nervously in the courtroom, clutching each other's hands. They had written letters to Miguel, telling him how much they missed him and how much they believed in him. "Dear Miguel," Sofia's letter read, "I miss your bedtime stories. Please come home soon." Mateo's letter showed a drawing of Miguel as a superhero, rescuing them from the bad guys. They hoped their letters would give him strength. Their small voices carried a weight of love and hope, a testament to their unwavering faith in Miguel. They were his biggest supporters. During the hearing, Gabriella presented the ICE memo, highlighting its biased language and discriminatory intent. The judge, a stern but fair woman, listened intently. She questioned the ICE agent who had arrested Miguel, pressing him on why he had ignored the documentation and the social worker's confirmation. The agent stammered, unable to provide a satisfactory explanation. The judge then turned to Gabriella. "Counsel," she said, "do you believe this memo influenced your client's arrest?" Gabriella nodded firmly. "Yes, Your Honor. We believe it demonstrates a clear pattern of discrimination." The judge leaned back in her chair, her expression thoughtful. "This is a serious matter," she stated. A hush fell over the courtroom. After a tense deliberation, the judge announced her decision. "Based on the evidence presented, and considering the serious questions raised about the conduct of ICE agents in this case," she said, her voice clear and firm, "I am ordering the immediate release of Miguel." A collective gasp filled the courtroom. Gabriella smiled, a wave of relief washing over her. Sophia and Mateo jumped up and down, tears streaming down their faces. Miguel was coming home. The judge continued, "Furthermore, I am recommending a full investigation into the practices of ICE in this district to ensure that such injustices do not occur again." Justice, finally, had prevailed. The moment Miguel walked out of the detention center, Sophia and Mateo ran to him, launching themselves into his arms. He held them tight, burying his face in their hair, tears streaming down his face. "I'm here," he whispered, his voice choked with emotion. "I'm here, and I'm never leaving you again." They clung to each other, a circle of love and relief. The months of separation, the fear, the uncertainty, it all melted away in that embrace. It was a moment of pure joy, a testament to the strength of their bond and the power of hope. They were finally together, a family reunited. The road to healing was long. Sophia still had nightmares about being separated from Miguel. Mateo was quieter than before, often clinging to Miguel's side. Miguel himself struggled with feelings of anger and injustice, but he channeled his energy into advocating for change. He spoke at community meetings, sharing his story and calling for reform. He worked with Gabriella and Elena to raise awareness about the flaws in the immigration system. He wanted to make sure that what happened to him never happened to another family. Their experience had changed them, but it had also strengthened their resolve to fight for a better future. Miguel's case sparked a wider conversation about immigration policies and the treatment of vulnerable families. Activists and community leaders called for greater oversight of ICE, demanding more training for agents and a more humane approach to enforcement. There were calls to defund programs that separated families and to invest in community-based solutions that supported immigrant integration. The Guardian Angels program, once threatened, experienced a resurgence, with renewed interest from families seeking a safe and legal path to reunification. Miguel's story became a symbol of hope and a catalyst for change, inspiring others to fight for justice and equality. The story of Miguel, Sophia, and Mateo is a reminder that even in the face of injustice, hope can prevail. It's a story about the importance of family, the power of community, and the courage to fight for what is right. It highlights the need for a more compassionate and equitable immigration system, one that values human dignity and protects the rights of all, especially children. It demonstrates that even a single act of injustice can spark a movement for change, inspiring others to stand up and demand a better world. And it shows that even in the darkest of times, the human spirit can triumph. Remember Miguel, Sophia, and Mateo. Remember their strength, their love, and their unwavering hope. Let their story inspire you to stand up for what is right, to fight for justice, and to believe in the power of human connection. Even when faced with seemingly insurmountable obstacles, never give up. Never lose faith in the goodness of humanity. And always remember that together, we can create a world where every child is safe, every family is united, and every person is treated with dignity and respect. Hold on to hope and never stop fighting for a better tomorrow.